There is a huge election coming up, and man, is it going to be wild. There's so much at stake. We can hold the House, take back the Senate, and recapture the White House. The left has total control of corporate media, government bureaucracy, big tech, and oh boy, do they know how to wield power.
They impeach me, they indict me.
There's more to do, so let's finish the job.
I've spent decades in public service and the media. I know how the system works and how to use it. I'm going to give you a front row seat free of charge and take you inside the race for the nomination like no one else can. We can fix our institutions and we can repair the damage that's been done to our country before it's too late. Welcome to the Sean Spicer Show.
And he's with me right now, Sean Spicer. He has a new show called The Sean Spicer Show, very aptly named. Congratulations on your new show. It's awesome. What's it going to be about?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Excited to join you on the first and be streaming everywhere. So yeah, the way I look at this is we are facing a historic election. Trump's trying to come back. We've got all of this weaponization of the judicial system. Biden's clearly not ready for a second term. And I think what I'm trying to do is use my years of expertise in politics, ironically going on 30 years this year, to really break down for people what's going on. Because I think part of the problem sometimes is people really want change, Liz, and it's making sure they understand the rules. There's so many times when I will explain to people, I get what you're trying to do. The rules just don't permit that, or here's why the network's doing this, or the RNC is doing that, or the state law won't permit it. And part of what I'm trying to do is to make sure we equip everybody with an understanding of how the game is played so that we can affect real change.
Yeah, and this is one of the most interesting parts. So a little confession to my audience. I, of course, knew what Sean's show was going to be about because Sean is one of my resources. When we talk about the rules, it's not just in an election, you're not just trying to win public opinion. You have to operate by the rules of the game. Sometimes those rules are convoluted. Sometimes we as voters don't get to take part in them, that it's just delegates or the RNC or whoever it might be, states that change these rules. It can be pretty confusing. And he's one of my resources whenever we talk about this stuff. It's funny too, because I've been joking with you. I can be kind of critical of other people's shows. I think everybody that hosts their own show is critical of other people's shows. And I asked you, I was like, am I going to like your show? Am I going to want to listen to it?
Well, true confession, like you started with, I had sought out your advice on how you had gone into this and what you had, how you had transitioned from OAN over to this world of streaming, and you gave me a lot of great advice, and I think I took enough of it that you should be proud of what the final product is.
Well, that remains to be seen, John. The show hasn't launched yet, so I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you after next week when it's on air.
The trailer is very good. The trailer's good.
The trailer's so good. It's legitimately a cool trailer. We're going to play it on here and people can go on your YouTube and look at it too, which I recommend that they do. But this is an interesting conversation. You and I have talked endlessly about this offline, but we both came from a cable news background before transitioning to what I call new media, which is a podcast platform. And it's an interesting split in the conservative commentary world between people who prefer cable news and people who prefer new media. And there's always a lot of intrigue and drama and curiosity when someone makes the jump from one to the other, either way. So talk to me about your decision to move away from cable news to new media. What prompted this? It can be a risky decision. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, it is a risky decision, but hopefully it's one that pays off. Well, number one, I think it's the future. 32% of Americans now, are subscribed to cable television or satellite. I mean, the number keeps going down every year. So that people who are there are clinging on to a legacy dying model. That's number one. Number two is that there's a level of independence, being able to do your own show. We answer to ourselves. We either live or die on the number of people who choose to who subscribe to it, who watch us. If you don't like us, you don't subscribe to it, you don't watch the show. We know that every single day. We know what we're doing well. We know what we're not doing well. I've been testing content all summer long and asking for feedback from people on locals and seanspicer.locals.com and saying, tell us what you want more of, what you want less of, trying to break things down in issues that people care about. So to me, this is the future of where things are headed. And it gives you the freedom to talk about subjects, interview guests, and not be constrained by 6-minute blocks and say, hey, that's a really interesting conversation. I'm glad we're done after 5 minutes and 40 seconds. We have to go to commercial break. And I think a lot of times these conversations are fantastic. I had one on my YouTube channel the other day with Dr. Robert Malone. It was about an hour long, and it was just absolutely fascinating. It was great that we got to have that conversation without constant interruptions or saying, okay, the only thing is the news of the day. It was an opportunity to really get deep into something, and I look forward to that.
Yeah, and one of the things for me that was one of the driving points of making this decision was I almost call it generational neglect. It's not just generational difference. But if we're going to be competing for the minds of any generation that's younger than boomers, and I love boomers, I mean this with no disrespect, then we have to be where the young people are. And the Republican Party in general, conservative commentators, we've lived for so long on talk radio, it can have a younger audience, but on cable news, that young people are getting their news from social media primarily, and conservatives don't compete the same way that the left is saturating that area.
Look, I mean, you think about it, where people want to get their news, when they want, where they want, how they want. So if we can offer them a platform where they can say, great, I'm going for my morning run. I'm going to go for a drive in the afternoon, and I got to get home from work, or I'm going somewhere, and I can click on the Liz Wheeler show or the Sean Spicer show. That's fantastic. And we don't get constrained to a time slot on a news program where the only way they can watch it is live or DVRing it and then going home and watching it, off of their DVR. So for us, this is an opportunity to reach people where they are. And you're right about the demographic. It's getting younger. The average age of a Newsmax viewer was almost 70 years old, and that tracks Fox and CNN as well. And so the idea of reaching beyond that is critical. And that's where I think if we're going to start changing a lot of the minds, I mean, we do very well on the conservative spectrum from people over 60 years old, but we're getting killed on the younger end. And I think we have a real opportunity there to bring ideas and thoughts and an understanding of the process to them in a way that they don't. So I think you're absolutely right. It's about figuring out ways to get ahead of the curve and reach people where they are in different demographics than just sitting on cable. And again, there's a place for that. I'm not dismissing it, but I think it is a dying platform.
Yeah, it is. And it can be hard to say that because there's almost this idea of leftover prestige that comes with cable news, that people are like, oh, wow, you're on TV at 8 p.m. or whatever time it is. And
I was going to say the other thing that's really interesting, Liz, and I do this little test all the time when I talk to folks. They'll talk about people they see on Fox or CNN or something like that. And then I'll say to them, do you know who Patrick Bet-David is? Do you know who Tim Pool is? Do you know Liz Wheeler? Do you know Dana Lash? And, Dave Rubin? And a lot of times I'll get people who will like scratch their head and I'll go, see, this is the problem. The people that are actually influencing people, you and Dave, Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, all of these folks who are on these platforms now, it's like there's a whole world of the legacy media that don't acknowledge that ecosystem exists. And that's part of the problem, is that the ideas are being shaped. And when you ask, if you took the 5 names that I just mentioned and told any candidate in the Republican field that they could have those channels from now until primary day, they would jump at that over taking over Fox News, because the activists in the movement are watching you. They're watching Dave Rubin. They're watching Bongino. They're watching Patrick. They're watching Tim Pool every night. And that's where I think there's a disconnect between understanding, to your point, where this demographic is, where the activists are in the movement, and where I think a lot of people think they are.
Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.